طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أهلا وسهلا ومرحبا. Hope everyone is good inshallah. Welcome to our 9th session of this course, the Tajweed course. And today inshallah ta'ala we are going to be talking about al-mad. Bismillah, let me share my screen. Here we go. And before we start, let's quickly share a clap link. So that everybody can get involved inshallah. I've posted it in the chat. One second. There you go. Okay, some of you said sound is low. How about now? Is that better? طيب, okay. Alright. طيب, everybody join us on wall clap inshallah. Start with the explanation. Bismillah. Today we're going to talk about al-mad, which stands for elongation. First thing we're going to mention about, in the book it says Bab al-mad wal-qasr. The Bab or the chapter of mad, elongation, and qasr. Qasr, which is the opposite of elongation, which is, it says here, al-habs, to keep something the way it is, or to keep something without changing it. So that's basically just talking about the opposite of mad, which is keeping things the way they are. And I think it's just good enough to just call it the rulings of al-mad, because the default ruling we're already aware of, which is not to elongate. Okay? So in default, when it comes to reading the Quran, you don't make something long unless it's a mad. Okay? So all of the vowels in the Quran are short vowels apart from those mudud. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What's a mad in Arabic? When should you elongate a vowel? Obviously consonants, it doesn't apply to consonants, it only applies to vowels. And we've talked about this obviously in the Quran reading course. We talked about mad, the letters of mad, and so on, and what have you. The difference now when it comes to Tajweed is we're going to build on what we've done in the Quran reading course. The Quran reading course, we just talked about the original mad, the normal mad. Yes? Which is 2 counts. But there are situations where you stretch the mad even longer than 2 counts. And that's what mad is about when it comes to Tajweed. Okay, when do you stretch it beyond the 2 counts? As far as the mad, which is the normal mad that is part of the language, the Arabic language itself, which is 2 counts, then that obviously is not really studied much in Tajweed because it's already part of the language. Tajweed is about the extra things. Like for example, you have idgham as part of the language, but things like ikhfa and the ghunna and these sort of things, these are specific to Tajweed. So stretching the mad beyond 2 counts is something specific to Tajweed. So when do you stretch it beyond 2 counts? How long do you stretch it for? All of that we're going to talk about today inshallah. So starting off with the mad, what does mad stand for? What's the definition of mad? Then linguistically it means to elongate. Al-maddu lughatan az-ziyadatu wal-mat, is to increase something or to elongate it and make it longer. Okay? And technically it stands for إطالة الصوت بحرف المد أو اللين عند وجود همز أو سكون بمقدار معلوم. In other words, is elongating or elongation of the sound with a letter of med or a letter of lean. We've talked about the letters of med. We talked about the maddul lean when we did the Quran reading course. So when do you elongate the sound, or when you talk about med, it's elongation of the sound with a letter of med or lean when there is a hamza or sukun, okay, for a specific amount, which is beyond the 2 counts that we're familiar with. Okay, so within the definition we learned that there are 2 things that cause this to happen, which is the hamza and the sukun. Okay, how does that happen? We'll talk about that now. First, the letters of med. What are the letters of med? I'll ask that question in WooClap, mainly because everybody should already be aware of it. Okay, so question on WooClap: what are the letters med? Actually, before I ask what they are, how many are they? Okay, first we'll ask how many, and then after that we'll go to what they are. How many are they? How many are the letters of med? So some of you said 3. Anyone's got another answer other than 3? 5. Okay. Someone said 5. Someone said 6. Okay. I didn't ask for the letters of med. I said I'm gonna ask that now. What are they? There are 3, by the way. How many are there? There are 3. And don't get mixed up between the meds. How many meds are there and how many letters of med are there? There's a big difference. I'm asking about the letters of med. The letters that elongate a short vowel. They are 3. What are they? What are those 3 letters? Ahsant. Alif, waw, and ya. Correct. Alif, waw, and ya. So those are the letters of med. Alhamdulillah, most of you already know it. Great. So the letters of med are the alif, the waw, and the ya. For example, the alif, when it comes after the fatha, such as qala, qala. And the waw, when it comes after a letter with dhamma, such as yaqulu, yaqulu. So qala as opposed to qala. Qala is short, qala is long. And yaqulu as opposed to yaqulu, that would be short. Okay. And al-ya'u sakinatu al-maksuru ma qablaha, or a ya with sukun that is preceded by a kasra. Qila, qila. And we talked about when we did the Quran reading course that in order for these letters of med to be a letter of med, they can't have a harakat themselves. If they have a harakat themselves, then they are consonants like any other consonant. And that obviously only applies to the waw and the ya, because alif never has a harakah. Okay. So every vowel, if you like, the short vowel, it's suitable to one of those 3 letters. Fatha goes with alif, dhamma goes with waw, kasra goes with ya. And we also have obviously the maddul lean, which is fatha followed by waw or fatha followed by ya. O and a, they are also called med. So in total, the mudud in the Arabic language are 5. Okay. Now these 5 mudud, which are the original meds, we can elongate them beyond 2 counts. And that's what today's lesson is about. Okay. So based on that, we have categories of med. There are 2 categories of med. Okay. We have what we call al-med al-asli. Okay. Aqsam al-med. The first one is al-med al-asli, the original med, which is the ones we've just mentioned. Okay. Also known as al-med al-tabi'i or al-maddul lean. Right. This is what? The original med that we're familiar with. Okay? Such as qala, yaqulu, qila. These are the original meds, 2 counts that we're familiar with. Fatha followed by alif, dhamma followed by waw, or kasra followed by ya, with sukun. Okay? This one, al-maddul asli, we're not gonna, this is beyond this, we're not gonna be talking about it. We're done with it. Maddul asli we covered in the Quran reading course because it's part of the language. And making a mistake in the Madd al-Asli is making a mistake in the language. Making a mistake in the Madd al-Asli is changing the meaning of the Quran. Okay? Do you understand? Whereas the second category called al-Madd al-Far'i, supplementary Madd, which is an extra Madd. Yes? This is specific to Tajweed. If you don't do this Madd, by doing 4, 5 or 6 counts, for example, you won't be changing the meaning of the Quran. Linguistically, the meaning is still correct. It's just that you haven't implemented Tajweed. You haven't implemented Tajweed, and you should. Just like it has come in the narration, I think from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu an, where a man, he recited, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينَ. That's what he said. Then Ibn Mas'ud said to him, no, that's not how we have been taught. That's not how the messenger read it to us. Instead, the messenger, he read, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينَ. So, this companion here was now teaching this individual that, look, yes, this Quran that you're reading is not like any Arabic text. It has specific rules. Yes, and if you truly want to read the Quran the way Prophet Muhammad has read it, if you want to read the Quran the way Jibreel has read to Muhammad and you want to read the Quran the way it was revealed, then you have to follow these rules of Tajweed. Even though they might not change the meaning, still, you should follow them. Okay? طيب. And making a mistake in them is a khata, or a mistake that is khafi. Like we said, we have a khata that is jali, clear mistake that changes the meaning. And this sort of mistake, even though it doesn't change the meaning, it doesn't mean it's not important. Okay? So we have those two categories. First category, al-Madd al-Asli, the original Madd is 2 counts. We're done with that. A as in qala, U as in yaqulu, E as in qila. Done with it. Okay? For example, Surah Al-Fatiha, Alhamdu lillahi, lillahi, that's a Madd. Rabbil Lamin. Meen, also a Madd. Ar-Rahmani, Madd. Ar-Rahim, Madd. Okay. طيب. And we mentioned as well when we done the Quran reading course that most English speakers, they really struggle with the Madd. And the reason for that is that in the English language, there is no such thing called a long vowel. I know they teach you in school long vowel, short vowel, but actually all the long vowels in the English language are actually diphthongs. They're actually a mixture of 2 vowels. So to give you an example, what's the long vowel of a? So they say a is a short vowel, as in cat, صح? Or apple, a. Okay? What's the long vowel of a? They say a. No, a is not a long vowel. A is a diphthong. A is a mixture between the a and the I sound. Together they make a. And the mixture between the a and the u sound gives you o. They're diphthongs, right? So a, if it was truly a long vowel in English, it would have been a. But you are not going to find a word in the English language with this sound. You're not going to find it. Okay, we explained that in the Quran reading course. I advise all of you to return back to that lesson on Madd. If you have any confusion about Madd, return back. I might actually quickly share the link for those of you that might not know where to find it. Let me share the link to that lesson quickly. For those of you that haven't done Madd before, then I really advise you to go back to that lesson. So there are 2 lessons. There's one called Maddul Leen, and there's another one on Madd, which is the long vowels. So inshallah you can catch both lessons, inshallah. I'll post both of them in the chat. So this is the one. Let me share quickly the screen. So this is the one on Maddul Leen, and this is the one on Madd, long vowels. Okay. I've posted the long vowel one, and that's the mad leen. Okay. Okay, there you go. Those are the two links to the two med videos I've done in the Quran reading course. Okay. Let's go back to our explanation. So going on to al-mad al-far'i, the types of supplementary med, or the types of al-mad al-far'i. Okay, this is the essence of today's lesson. Okay, the types of al-mad al-far'i. طيب. The first one is what we call, or before we talk about it, they are of two groups. We can group them together into two groups. You have types of al-mad al-far'i, or supplementary meds that are caused by hamza, because of hamza, i.e. a hamza following the med. And there are other types of mad al-far'i caused by the sukun. Okay, so these are the two reasons why we end up with a mad al-far'i, and that's why it was part of the definition. Remember the definition? Elongation of the sound with a letter of mad or leen when there's a hamza or sukun. Okay, yeah, so those are the two reasons why we might end up with a mad al-far'i. So anytime you see an original med, no matter what type it is, whenever you see an original med, e or u, or even o and a as well, the mad leen as well, on some occasions, and it's followed by one of these two, right? You need to pay attention, because it's gonna be part of one of 4 categories of med. Okay, or arguably 5, but the 5th one, this one over here, I don't see it as relevant, and I'll explain to you why. Okay, so we have in total, we have 4 if we exclude this one. First one is what we call al-mad al-muttasil, the joined med. What's meant by that? Well, it's due to hamza, number 1, which means that al-mad al-tabi'i, the normal med that you're familiar with, e or u, if it's followed by a hamza, then you need to stretch. You need to stretch it. And the second one, al-mad al-munfasil, is the same. These two are the same. There's only one slight difference between them. Okay, one is when it's joined, they call it muttasil or joined, i.e. when it's in one word, within one word, i.e. you have the med and then you have the hamza, and they're both together as part of one word. The second one is when you have a med, i.e. the first word ends with a med and the second word starts with a hamza, and by way of that they occur separated in 2 different words. That's when we have al-mad al-munfasil. So that's the only difference. Okay, but the essence really is a, e, u followed by hamza. Then the question remains, is it one word or are they 2 separate words? Okay, طيب, let me give you some examples so that it becomes clear. Al-mad al-muttasil, one of the examples that you are definitely familiar with is the word ulaika. So ulaika is one word, they. Okay, ulaika, or those, right? Here what we do, what's the ruling of al-mad al-muttasil? Well, the ruling is number 1, that you should elongate it to 4 or 5 counts. Wujuban, you have to. It's a must. And this is the exact same med that we mentioned in the narration of Ibn Mas'ud. إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين. فقراء, which means poor people, is one word. Okay, so that's why Ibn Mas'ud, he said, this is how you should read it. This is what we call al-mad al-wajib or al-mad al-muttasil. Al-wajib is the med which is where it's joined, i.e. is in one word, and it's wajib, you have to stretch it. Okay? You have to stretch it 4 to 5 counts. How do you know what a count is? When we say a count, we're talking about a count of pronouncing one letter or one vowel. Okay? So, a is 1 count. A is 2 counts. So, for example, we have, let's take 2 words. For example, كتب 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 كاتب. So كتب and كاتب. Difference between كتب, the ka is 1 count. كاتب is 2 counts. Okay? So based on that, 4 counts would be double of that. So 2 counts would be إنما الصدقات للفقراء للفقراء. 1 count would be إنما الصدقات للفقراء, and that would be wrong because that's a word. فقراء is not a word in the Arabic language. So the مد الطبيعي here says للفقراء. If you say فقراء in Arabic, that's fine. Someone will know what you're talking about. فقراء, oh, plural of فقير, poor people. Okay, that's 2 counts. How about 4 counts? للفقراء or للفقراء. This 4 counts. Double of للفقراء. Now, you don't have to be that precise, my dear brothers and sisters. Okay, it's just that it has to be significantly longer than للفقراء. Okay, and it shouldn't be way too long. Okay, so this is a rough estimate, 4 to 5 counts. Okay, إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين, and so on and so forth. Now al-mad, that's al-mad al-muttasil, 1 word. Another example here, هنيئا مريئا, 2 words after each other that both have mad al-muttasil. Okay, فكلوه, Allah says هنيئا مريئا. And then we also have السوء 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 is 1 word. Okay, طيب. How about some examples for al-mad al-munfasil? For example, here we have بما أنزل. بما أنزل. بما is a word, or actually 2 words. أنزل is another word, and they're separate. You can see the space. You would easily know if it's 2 words or 1 word because of the space in between. Okay, so this would be بما أنزل, or sorry, بما أنزل. Again, this one, what's its ruling? Its ruling is number 1, that you stretch it. Yes, you don't have to stretch it. Okay, but how much do you stretch it for? The same, 4 to 5 counts. ومقدار مده 4 حركات أو 5 حركات, 4 or 5 counts. Okay, there's another opinion that says 4 or 6, but according to the book here, we'll go by that. The book is our resource here. 4 or 5 counts. Okay, same as al-mad al-muttasil. So the only difference now between mad al-munfasil and mad al-muttasil in terms of their ruling is that one you have to stretch and the other one you have the choice not to. That's the only difference. Okay, so بما أنزل, you can say that. Okay, قوا أنفسكم قوا أنفسكم, you can say that. Or you can also say قوا أنفسكم, you can say that as well. Okay, وأمري إلى الله, or وأمري إلى الله, you can say that as well. Alright, that's when it comes to the mad which is due to Hamza. Al-mad al-badal, which they call the mad of a substitute, they call it a substitute because of the fact that linguistically, and the reason I say it's not relevant is because it doesn't make a difference to you how you pronounce it. It doesn't make a difference to the way you pronounce it. Okay, al-mad al-badal, these 2 is when you have mad tabi'i, the normal mad followed by Hamza. This one is opposite. You can have the Hamza followed by mad tabi'i. So you have Hamza with a fatha followed by alif. For example, Adama. Adama. The word Adama. Okay? This one is always going to be 2 counts anyway. It's not any different from Mad al-Asli. There are other qira'at maybe that's a different story where it's longer than 2 counts, but we're doing qira'at Hafs and Asim, so it's not relevant to us. So for us it's not relevant because Adama is Adama. You can't say Adama, you can't. Alright, so Adama is 2 counts. The fact that it was originally Adama and then they substituted the Hamza with an Alif to make it easier for you to pronounce, that's something linguistic to do with phonology. It's not got nothing to do with Tajweed. Okay, and there's a lot of overlap sometimes between the different sciences of the Arabic language and Tajweed. There's a lot of things they've imported into Tajweed when in essence it's actually got to do with some kind of Arabic language science, nothing much to do with Tajweed. And this is unfortunately very widespread. So the original nature of what happened, there's a lot of overlap between phonology here and Tajweed, right? When Tajweed in essence is a completely separate science which is specific to the Quran. So originally the word was A'dama or Iman. You know the word Iman? We always say وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُضِيعَ إِيمَانَكُمْ. Iman. This word originally it was I'man. I'man. Morphologically originally it was I'man. But because of the difficulty in saying I'man and A'dama and A'kulu and these sort of things, the Arabs, they never pronounced it that way. They pronounce it as Akulu, Iman, Adama, and so on and so forth. Okay? Not something to do with Tajweed. You don't need to know what the origin of that letter was. Maybe if you're going to study for phonology or morphology or whatever, or etymology, whatever, is fine. But for Tajweed, it's not relevant. So I've excluded it over here because you're going to pronounce it 2 counts anyway. So we can just stick to these 2, which actually come with a new ruling. It's going to make a difference to your pronunciation because you're allowed to stretch it up to 4 or 5, or on one occasion with Maddul Wajib al-Muttasil, you have to stretch it up to 4 or 5. This is now something that makes a difference to your recitation. This is something that you should know. So let's go to the next category. Those meds that are caused by sukun, i.e. a med followed by sukun. A med followed by sukun. طيب كم مد في السوء؟ 4 or 5. It's مد واجب متصل, so 4 or 5 counts. Okay, now if we continue سوء, the following word starts with a hamza, so you have مد المنفصل there as well, but they haven't added that to the example in the book. Okay, because that would be confusing obviously, because they gave it as an example for med wajib muttasil, so they should stick to that. There are 2 meds that are caused by sukun. The first one is al-maddul lazim, the mandatory med. The what? The mandatory med. Lazim. And when does that happen? It happens when وهو أن يقع سكون أصلي وصلا ووقفا بعد حرف المد واللين، أو بعد حرف اللين في كلمة أو في حرف النحو ولا الضالين. In other words, it's when you have a letter, if you have a med followed by what? A sukun. Okay, a sukun, an original sukun, a sukun that belongs there. Okay, so there's a difference between these 2. Al-madd al-lazim arid al-sukun. This one, the sukun linguistically belongs there, whereas this one, it's a med that comes as a consequence of you stopping your recitation. A sukun that comes as a consequence of you doing waqf. We already talked about the rulings of waqf and ibtida when we done the Quran reading course. When you're reciting the Quran, sometimes you can pause, sometimes you can stop, and we said you always stop and pause on a sukun, haven't we? You always stop and pause on a sukun. For example, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We don't say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahimi. We don't say that. We say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We end on a sukun. Why? Because this is the rule when it comes to waqf. Whenever you stop, whenever you pause, you stop or pause on a sukun. So this sukun, arid lil sukun, is something that is extra. It's something consequential. It's part, is a consequence to you stopping there. The difference between these two is that, like we said, the second one, mad arid sukun, is a consequence to you stopping there. Whereas the first one, la, the sukun belongs there linguistically. So for example, wala dalin, yes, you have dalin, you make it long. Why? Because there's a lam there with shadda. Alright? There's a lam there with shadda. What does that mean? What does that mean? When you have the lam with shadda there, where's the sukun? In the word wala dalin, where is the sukun that follows the med? I kind of like gave away the answer anyway, but I might as well ask. Where is the sukun following the med? In the example of wala dalin, where is the sukun? On the first lam. Okay, elaborate a bit more. What do you mean by the first lam? For those that might not know. What do you mean by the first lam? Elaborate more. Shadda doubles the letter. Ahsant, we've done that before. So that means we have two lams. Okay, one lam is sakin, ahsant, has haraka, and the other has haraka. Yes. So this basically takes us back to the subject of shadda. And that's why the Quran reading course is a prerequisite to you really benefiting from the Tajweed course. Because most of the rulings in Tajweed go back to the rulings that you know with regards to reading the Quran. So shadda, we said, is two letters. The first letter having a sukun and the second letter having a haraka. If that's the case, then we have wala dalin. So let me write it for you, so that we can visualize it better. Okay, so we have, let's just write ad-dalin. I'm not going to add the harakat, so please forgive me. 1 second. The shadda. Okay, ad-dalin. Now this alif over here, we have a dad with fatha, followed by an alif, right? Let's go back. I think that's one of the reasons I like to use Microsoft Word when I want to write something. Let me share. Okay, so just ignore this. This is from yesterday's class. Let's go to the next page. Okay, so we have okay, dad with fatha. It's got a shadda itself because it is from the huruf of shamsiyya. Ad-da and the lam, which has a shadda and a kasra and then a ya and then a noon. Okay, now this alif over here is a letter from the letters of med. Okay, so along with the fatha, it gives us a med, dalin. Okay, if it wasn't for the sukun, you would have said ad-dalin. Okay, but there's a shadda over here. Because there's a shadda, if we exchange the shadda, if you go to the, the way that you exchange your money, you go to those people that'll exchange the letters for you. If you give them a letter with shadda, in return they'll give you two letters. Okay, a letter with sukun and a letter with haraka. Okay, so this is what we have basically. Okay, so as you can see, we have here a letter with sukun, don't we? I don't like this font. That one's better. Okay, so we have here what? A letter with sukun, the lam basically. So now we have what we call al-maddul lazim. This med, we're going to stretch it for 6 counts. It's the longest med, 6 counts. And why do we do that? What's the reason? Because of the sukun. It has been caused by the sukun. Sukun is the cause of this med. So we say وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. الضالين. Okay? طيب. Now, the beautiful thing about this particular example is we also have the med al-arid lil-sukun. So the other type of med that we talked about, which is the med that is caused by the sukun, which is a consequential, yes, which is when we stop at the end of an ayah, yes, that one we call med arid lil-sukun. And for that particular med, then you don't have to stretch it like you do the med al-lazim. You're allowed to stretch it. Okay, you're allowed to stretch it either 2 counts, which is the normal med tabi'i, or you can also stretch it for 4 counts, or you can also stretch it for 6 counts. So here you have a choice. So he mentions here والمد الذي ينشأ بسبب الوقف. It's because of the waqf, because of you stopping. بعد أحد حروف المد, because of you stopping after a letter from the letters of med or lin. Okay, and وسمي عارضا للسكون. How is it called عارض للسكون؟ لأن السكون عرض له من أجل الوقف, because the sukun, it came there because of the fact that you were stopping. So it's not an original sukun. It's not a sukun that is original like the med lazim. ومقدار مده حركتان وأربع وست, 2, 4 or 6. Okay, so let's go back to the example. Here we have med lazim because of the sukun here that belongs there, that's part of the language. This sukun you can't get rid of. You can't say wala dalin without actually pronouncing 2 lams over here. You have to. So you have to say wala dalin. You see? Dalin. There's 2 lams there. It's not wala dalin. Some people they say that. A lot of people they say this. A lot of people they say wala dalin. No. Wala dalin. 2 lams. Okay? And this is now the med arid lis-sukun at the end. This ya over here. It's also a med. If we were to continue, okay, wala dalina amin. Then what would happen? It wouldn't be med arid lis-sukun. It would be a normal med tabi'i, 2 counts. When does it turn into med arid lis-sukun? When we stop on the noon and we stop on a sukun. So we can do 2, 4 or 6 counts. So you can say either ولا الضالين. Fine. So the first one med lazim is 6 counts and the med arid sukun 2 counts. Or you can say ولا الضالين. Med arid sukun 6 counts and med lazim, which is always 6 counts, and med arid sukun, which is 4 counts. Or you can stretch med arid sukun as much as the med lazim by also making it 6 counts, like this. ولا الضالين, which is how most imams do it anyway. Okay? واضح? That's the difference between med arid للسكون and med what? Med lazim. Now there's one thing that we can mention about al-med al-lazim, which is it's of different types. Okay? So you are here med al-far'i, you're talking about al-med al-lazim wal ad-dalin. This one, it's of different types. So if you go here, it mentions aqsam al-med al-lazim. Okay? And for some reason, I forgot to add this for some reason. Okay? Al-med al-lazim al-kalimi and al-med al-lazim al-harfi. So you have al-med al-lazim al-kalimi, which is the med al-lazim that happens in a word. Okay? So as part of a word, al-kalimi, okay, wordy if you like, that would be a literal translation, a wordy med lazim. Or you can have a med lazim that is as part of a letter. Okay, as part of a letter. What do you mean as part of a letter, Ustad? That doesn't make sense. How is that possible? How can mad lazim be a part of a letter when a mad, generally speaking, already consists of minimum at least 2 letters? The letter of mad and another letter that carries the vowel as well, and then the letter which has a sukun. So you have at least 3 letters that are involved here, Ustad. How can you have a mad lazim, as part of a letter, just one letter? How is that even possible? Look, here we have this dad that carries the fatha, we have the alif which is the letter of mad, and we have the lam with sukun. We have 3 letters here together joining forces to give us a mad lazim. So how can there be a mad lazim as part of just one letter? If that letter was the letter of mad, it wouldn't have been possible, because the letter of mad needs a fatha, kasra or dhamma that it needs to elongate, which is carried by another letter. Well, what's meant by that are not the normal letters that we read. Okay? Now we are talking about huruf al-hija. Huruf al-hija. We're talking about the letters in the alphabet. We're talking about what? The letters of the alphabet. Such as alif, ba, ta, tha. These letters of the alphabet, we're not talking about their sounds, we're talking about their names. The names of the letters of the alphabet. Okay? So, for example, we have alif. Okay? Alif. Alif, we have the letter ba. Okay? Now when we say ba, it's 2 letters. If we're talking about, the sounds, right? We have a ba with a fatha and then alif which is a mid. But in terms of the name of the letter ba, then ba is basically ba. It's 1 letter. That ba stands for 1 letter. So ba equals ba, doesn't it? And we have alif equals alif, right? Okay? So when we say this, which letters do you think we're talking about? When we say al-huruf al-hija'iyya, and we're talking about the context of the Quran, which letters are we talking about? That are going to be mad lazim. Give me an example. Which letters do you think we're talking about? So when we say al-madd al-lazim al-harfi, the madd al-lazim that relates to a letter, we said we're talking about the letters of hijab, we're talking about the letters of the alphabet, their names. Give me an example of where this madd lazim then would take place. Come on, you should know it. Huh? No. Come on, think. Think, my dear brothers and sisters. Think carefully. Ahsant. Alif Lam Mim. Yes. The first ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah. Alif Lam Mim. Aren't Alif Lam and Mim letters? Yes, they are letters. If we're talking about the huruf al-hija, if we're talking about the letters of the alphabet, the Arabic alphabet, the names, alif is a letter, lam is a letter, mim is a letter. صح ولا لا? Okay? Now these letters, even though they're written like this in the Quran, how they're written in the Quran, they're written like this, صح? True. But that's not what we're pronouncing, is it? We're not saying alam or ilam or whatever. Okay? We're actually saying the names. Okay? So this is obviously something that is unique to the huruf. It's called huruf al-hija al-muqatta'a. Al-huruf al-muqatta'a they're called. Okay? The letters that are isolated or by themselves, we say their names. They're not part of a word. Okay, whereas ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه, ذال, the lam and the kaf, these are letters that are part of a word. But alif lam mim, these letters are by themselves. They're not part of a word or a sentence. Okay, these letters, when it comes to tajweed, and I've said this many times before, tajweed, my dear brothers and sisters, is about what you're saying. It's not about what's written. It's about what's coming out of your mouth. What are you saying? Alif lam mim. When you pronounce that, what are you saying? You are pronouncing this. This is what you're saying. I'm even going to add a harakat for you. Alif lam. I didn't add a harakat. Yes, I did. Why did it disappear? Whatever. Lam mim. This is what you're pronouncing, isn't it? When you say alif lam mim, you're actually saying this. So here we have tajweed rules. We have tajweed rules. Now, the first tajweed rule that we have is we have lam and a alif, which is la, which is mat tabi'i, followed by a mim. Another mim with shadda. Now, before we do anything, here we have idgham to start with. Before anything, we have idgham shafawi. Lam mim, that's idgham. Okay, and we also have mad lazim. Why do we have mad lazim? Because we have the alif here, the mad, followed by a mim with shadda, which is the same as dalin. A mim with shadda is a mim with sukun and a mim with kasra. Because of that, we say alif lam mim. Do you understand now why the lam in Surah Al-Baqarah has this med sign on it? That's why. And if you pay attention, the alif here, we're not making it long. There is no med here. Okay? Let me give you another example. Ha mim. This is what we see. But this is what we're pronouncing. Ha mim. That's what we're pronouncing. Okay, now question. Is there a med lazim over here? If yes, where? Okay, is there a med lazim over here? If yes, where? So hamim is there where? So I'm talking about hamim. One person said in the letter mim, on the mim. Okay, how about the ha? Is there a mad lazim on the ha? Do we say ha mim, or do we say ha mim, or do we say ha mim? Well, someone said both letters. Someone said no, it's a normal med. I suppose you're referring to the ha. Okay, so basically, let me add the harakat. Here we have a kasra, obviously, and this is going to be a sukun, right? Ha mim, this is a sukun. Based on that, this alif over here is a normal med. It's a normal med. This is not med lazim. Why? Because it's not followed by a sukun. The mim has a kasra. So ha mim. Okay, this is a med lazim. Let's make that green. Why is this one med lazim? Why? Because of the fact that you have now a kasra and a ya followed by a mim with sukun. So it's ha mim. Okay, is that clear? Okay, Surah Ash-Shura starts with Hamim. It's the first ayah. Second ayah, or is it the same ayah? No, I think it's the second ayah. It says Ain, Sin, Qaf. Okay? How many mad lazms do you have in here? Ain, Sin, Qaf. Let me ask another question. How many meds in Ain, Sin, Qaf? Three. Someone said 2, and someone said 1. Okay, so we have all the possible answers here. 3, 2, or 1. Well, let's find out. In order to find out, we have to write it out. Okay, so let's write it. Let's write Ain, Sin, Qaf. Okay, now Ain, this is med lean. Okay, and we mentioned that this applies, the med lazim applies to med lean and med tabi'i, it applies to both of them. Okay, so we have a med lazim over here. Ain. We have a med lazim over here. Okay, we also have something else. There's also another Tajweed rule that we've covered. Who can tell me what it is? Why is it selecting both? Allah yahdik. What is wrong with it? I think it's this font. This font's playing up. Let's try another font. Bismillah. Calibri. Nah, looks too funny. Traditional Arabic. Yes, perfect. Okay. Huh. Okay, it's weird. I don't know why it's... Let's do this. Okay, and then let's join them together. What? Okay, just ignore that. We have another Tajweed rule here. Who knows what it is? Let me ask that question. There's another Tajweed rule that we have here. What's the other Tajweed rule in Ain, Sin, Qaf? There's actually 2 of them actually. Izhar? No. Ikhfa, ahsant. We got two occurrences of ikhfa over here. We have noon with sukun followed by sin. Ikhfa. We have another noon with sukun followed by qaf. Okay? So here we have mad lazim, we have ikhfa, and we also have sin. Again, same as ayn, no difference. That's another mad lazim. Okay? And then we have qaf. Another mad lazim. Okay? We have fatha over here. Okay? Fa has got sukun. That's another mad lazim. Okay? So we got 3 mad lazims over here. So this is how you would pronounce it. Ayn, Sin, Qaf. That's how you pronounce it. Ayn. Look, I'm not saying Ayn. I'm not saying the noon. I'm doing ikhfa. Ayn, Sin, ikhfa. Sin, Qaf. Okay? Right. So we have those 2 types of, if you like, mad lazims. The ones that are part of a word, such as what? Ad-dalin. Okay? And we have also those that is part of a letter, such as alif, lam, mim. Okay, is that clear? Right. Then it mentions that one of them can be mukhaffaf and one of them can be muthaqqal, but that's not, I don't think it's something that is relevant here. Okay, the only difference between mukhaffaf and muthaqqal being the shadda, but you're still gonna be elongating it, so we'll leave that out for now. Okay, and we've already done mad arid lil-sukun, example being what, such as Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. When you stop at the end of this ayah, you say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, 2 counts. Or you can say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, 4 counts. Or you can say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, 6 counts. You can do all 3 of them. Okay? Now we also have what we call the levels of supplementary med. So this med that we've done, the different types, and med al-far'i, it comes at different levels. Okay? And the importance of knowing these levels, or why they come in different levels, is because some mudud are more important than others. So that if you end up with both meds being present, you have to give precedence over one over the other. Okay? So that's why they've mentioned that these come at different levels. And I'm going to allow you to guess, if you like, what these levels are. Okay? So we have al-mad al-muttasil, we have al-mad al-munfasil, we have al-mad al-badal, we'll add that as well. We have al-mad al-lazim, and mad arid lis-sukun. These 5, I want you to sort them according to their importance. And you can do that if you use a little bit of common sense. Okay, I think this is the right question. So, let's say sort the supplementary meds according to their importance. Okay, so let's just paste all of them. Okay, I'm gonna have to stop sharing now because I need to put them in the correct order, so you don't need to see the answer. So the first one is that one. You have obviously no idea which one I'm talking about. Then the second one is going to be that one, and then this one, and then okay, there we go. All right, put them in order of importance. The question's up on WooClap. Like I said, if you use a little bit of common sense, you can do it. You can do it. You might make a mistake in 1 or 2 of them, but you should definitely at least get the first 2 right, and the last one as well. Okay, I'll give it 10 more seconds before I reveal the answer. Okay, I'm going to reveal the answer. Sorry those of you that are still answering, but I think that was enough time. Okay, now the correct combination was this. Al-Madd al-Lazim, because it's mandatory. Okay, it's in the name. Mad lazim is mandatory. So if for some reason, which I think is highly unlikely. Yeah, for example, if you have a word that ends with a shadda, okay, such as rad, okay, or had, as in had, opposed, okay. Now that letter ends with a shadda, right? let me give a better example. Med lazim is always mandatory. Okay? Can't think of an example whereby it would clash with another one because med lazim is normally in the middle of the word. But let's see some of the examples that the book gives. مراتب المدود, it says ويعمل بالأقوى مثال ذلك قوله تعالى آمين. Okay, and this is a clash between med badal. Amina is med badal, is also med lazim, so we go for the med lazim obviously. Okay, it didn't give many examples. I don't think it's that widespread. Nevertheless, med lazim is the highest level, followed by med muttasil because obligatory, it's wajib, followed by med arid lis sukun, okay, which is subject to sukun. These two obviously, med munfasil and med arid lis sukun, they're both, you're allowed to do both of them. And med badal is never more than 2 anyway, so that's why it's going to be last. So I expected you to at least get these 2 and the last one right. The order of these 2 might be a bit more difficult, okay? Most frequent answers that I've got was this combination, which is med lazim, med muttasil. Alhamdulillah, you got that right at least. Med arid lis sukun, med munfasil, med, mashallah. 3 of you got it right. Very impressive, mashallah. Some of you said med lazim, muttasil, munfasil, arid, sukun. You mixed up between these two of you, which again is very acceptable. There would be no other way to know the difference. But here, for example, one of you said, so 2 of you said med muttasil before med lazim. No, med lazim, it's in the name, mandatory. It's the most important med. Okay, then we have med arid lis sukun, med munfasil, and med badal. At least all of you agreed on med badal being last. Okay, mumtaz. What's that? How do I get rid of this? X. Okay. Type mumtaz. Finally, there's something we call med silah, and I'm going to be very quick on this one because there's not really much. There's no new ruling to learn here. It's actually the same rulings as we know. It basically talks about what they call ha'ul kinaya, which basically is the ha, which is for the third person, masculine, such as kitabahu or alayhi, or so on and so forth. That ha at the end. That ha, you will notice that in the Quran, sometimes it has a small waw after it, or a small ya. Okay? So for example, if we pay attention here, I hope you can see it. We have ahlihi. Can you see that small ya? The miniature ya, the tiny mini ya that's over here? Yeah, it comes after that ha only, most of the time. Or all of the time actually, only comes after this ha. It's called ha'ul kinaya. Nuwallihi. You see that ya over here? And sometimes it's a waw, such as lahu ma fis samawati. Lahu. You see? Lahu. Lahu. You have that small waw, that mini waw that comes after the ha. Now this is called meddus silah. It's called meddus silah. Okay? Because connected, it is a med that basically, they call meddus silah because the waw comes after the ha. Okay? It's connected to it. Meddus silah. And this med is of 2 types. We have med silah sughra, the small meddus silah, and we have meddus silah al kubra, the big med silah. Okay? When is it sughra and when is it kubra? When is it sughra? When is it kubra? That basically goes back to what? It goes back to the rules we've just learned. Goes back to the same rules that we've just learned. Okay? So if that small med is followed by a normal letter other than hamza, then it's meddus silah sughra. It's 2 counts. So for example, we have bihi khabira. Bihi khabira. We don't say bihi khabira. No. There's no hamza here. There is no sukun. There's no reason for you to elongate it beyond 2 counts. Innahu lakum. Innahu lakum. We're not saying innahu lakum. There's a med there, med tabi'i, because of the waw that you can see over here. Med silah. We say innahu lakum. But neither do we stretch it and say innahu lakum. We don't do that. Okay, we elongate it for 2 counts because that's how it should be. But if it's followed by a hamza, now that's a different story. Now it becomes Maddu Sila al-Kubra. It becomes the big Maddu Sila. Now we're going to elongate it, such as عِنْدَهُ أَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ or بِهِ إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ. Okay, now the question is, 2 questions. Do we have to elongate it beyond 2 counts, yani? Okay, and how long do we elongate it? Okay, and I'm going to ask both questions on WooClap. First question is, how long do we elongate it for? Okay, it's going to be more than 2 counts. I can give you that. How many? How long are we elongating for? And do we have to elongate it? I might as well post both of them as one question on WooClap. So do we have to elongate it? And if yes, for how long? Okay, so someone said no, 4 counts. Well, it doesn't make sense to say no and then 4 counts. If you're not going to elongate it more than 2 counts, which is the asal, original, then how can you say no and elongate it for 4 counts? That's basically yes. Elongate it for 4 counts, okay? So that's the only no I've seen so far. The rest of you are saying yes, elongate it for 4 to 5 counts. Okay? Some of you say 4 to 5 beats, 4 to 5 times, okay, whatever, okay? Elongate it 4 to 5 counts, okay? Which is correct. Why is that the case? Why do we elongate it for 4 to 5 counts? Because this is basically, what is it? Give me the reason now. You've given me the right answer, but why elongate it 4 to 5 counts? We have to elongate it, you said. And you said it has to be 4 to 5 counts. Question is why? Just double check you know the reason why.
Sorry to disturb you. Can you check your microphone?
Can I?
Your mic has
The wrong mic.
turned off, I think so.
Jazakallah khair. Okay. Yes, it's like med munfasil. No, it's not like med munfasil. It's not similar to med munfasil. It is med munfasil. Okay, it is. Okay, it's both. It's med silah because of the fact that this waw has been added, and they call it med silah because it's just that originally in the language it's not there. It's been added there for a reason, for phonological reasons, to make the reading easier. It's something that Arabs they do, and mind you, they don't always add the small waw and the small ya. Okay, there are many situations when they don't. I'll show you in a moment. But there are certain situations when they do. But when they do, and we end up having this met tabi'i, which is 2 counts, if it's followed by hamza, which obviously is always going to be part of another word, because this hu with the med sila is always at the end of the word. It can never be in the middle of the word. It's always going to be at the end of the word. So it's always going to be 2 separate words. And then based on that, it's going to be met munfasil, which is jaiz. Okay, so based on that, your answer was wrong. All of you, your answers were wrong. All of you. Alright? One person said, no, you don't have to elongate it, and then they wrote 4 counts. Alright? The rest of you wrote, yes, you have to elongate it, 4 to 5 counts. Now, if you say, yes, we have to elongate it, then that means it's med wajib muttasil. And it's not med wajib muttasil because it's not one word, it's 2 separate words. Okay, so the answer would be, no, you don't have to elongate it. And I correct myself when I said earlier that you can't say no and 4 to 5 counts, because I forgot that it was one question. So yes, no, you don't have to The answer wasn't can you elongate it. The question wasn't can you elongate it. The question was do you have to. Answer is no, you don't have to. So excuse me, the person who I said it was wrong. No, you don't have to. But if you are going to elongate it, it should be 4 to 5 counts. 4 to 5 counts. Okay, so no, you don't have to. But if you are 4 to 5 counts, why? Because it's basically med munfasil. That's what it is. It's med munfasil. Because they are two separate words. Okay? So that's why Maddu Silah or the whole Ha'ul Kinaya in the book, they've mentioned it as a completely separate chapter. They haven't even added it under the chapter of Med. Mainly because it's built on the previous chapter. And they just wanted to point out that this was the case. Now, like I said to you earlier, they don't always add the small waw or the ya to elongate it when you have the ha. For example, here we have Rabbihi al-A'la. Rabbihi al-A'la. There is no small ya over here. So you don't say Rabbihi al-A'la. We don't say that. Lahul mulku. There is no waw over here. You don't say Lahul mulku. We don't. Okay. Likewise, here we have min husmuhu. We don't say min husmuhu. No. And there are reasons they talk here. They talk here exactly why. Okay. Or when that happens. So the only time when they do add a med is this third situation, where you have a letter with haraka before the ha and another letter with haraka after the ha. That's the only time when they add the med. Okay? Lahu ma fis samawati. Lahu ma fis samawati. But if it is a letter with sukun that comes after the ha, they would never add a waw or a ya to elongate the med. There's no need anyway. You're going to join it anyway with hamzatul wasl or the like. Okay? For example, here we have also fihi hudan. So if it's preceded by a sukun, even if the letter after there's haraka, they don't add a ya or a waw. So it's not fihi hudan. It's not fihi hudan. No. Fihi hudan. We don't stretch it. Ijtabahu rabbuhu. Not ijtabahu wahadahu. La. And some people, wallahi, they make that mistake. In my experience of teaching Quran, there are some people that every time they see this small ha, they stretch it. They would say, Ijtabahu wahadahu ila. That's how they would say it. And there are other people that never stretch it. They even when it should be. So, lahu ma fis samawati, they would say, lahu ma fis samawati, lahu ma fis samawati. They won't say, lahu ma fis samawati. So yes, there's something to pay attention to. And they mention here 3 occasions that are an exception to the rule. In the Quran, you have to memorize them the way they are. Okay, for example, fihi muhana. A lot of people make this mistake in Surah Furqan. They say fihi muhana. La, fihi muhana. That's how it is. Okay? Yardahu lakum is not yardahu lakum. The amount of times I heard someone make that mistake is unbelievable. Yardahu lakum. Why? Because they're used to it. That whenever you have these short vowels after each other, and the word after the ha has a fatha or a vowel, we're used to having that small waw there. But in this occasion, it's not yardahu lakum. It's yardahu lakum. Okay? These are some exceptions to the rule. It's only a few of them. Okay? But for you, it really comes down to one simple thing. Just look out for that small waw. Look out for that small ya. If it's there, elongate it. If it's not there, don't elongate it. And when you do elongate it, if you see that the following word starts with the hamza, then you can elongate it to 4 or 5 counts if you want to. Summary of Ha'ul Kinaya in one sentence. Summary of Maddu Silah in one sentence. Okay? هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد. Are there any questions before we break up for the workshop? Let me know. Yes, صغرى has ya صغيرة and kubra has ya and med. Yes, صغرى, med sila صغرى doesn't have, if you like, that med sign on it. Okay? So that med sign, and this is something that maybe you haven't mentioned, but if you look in the Mus'haf, all of the meds that are far'i, all of the mads that should be elongated more than 2 counts, they have this little sign called madda. Madda. Okay? They have unless it's on top of an alif, that's different. But when you see a meme with a madda on top, you see a ha or a ayn with the madda on top, or you see that small waw with the madda sign on top, or the ya with the mad sign on top, now you know that, hey, this is either going to be mad wajib, if it's in one word, or it's going to be mad munfasil, or the likes, or mad lazim. Okay? Okay, someone said, I still don't understand mad arid lil-sukun. Alright. Question. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. What does that verse end with? Does it end with a sukun, yes or no? Let's answer that question first. Then I'll tell you what mad arid lil-sukun is. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. That ayah, does it end with a sukun, yes or no? Yes, as in yes, it ends with a sukun? Well, I tell you to open the mushaf and look at what haraka there's on the noon. What are you going to see? If you open the mushaf, no, you're not going to see a kasra. On the noon. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. On that noon, what haraka does he have? Does he have a sukun sign on top? Or does he have nothing? Or does he have a fatha or dhamma? A fatha. Okay. So, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Okay? Alright. Now, mad arid lil-sukun, what is it? Very simple. When I say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, even though in the mushaf there's a fatha on the noon, what did I pronounce? I pronounced a sukun. Now that sukun, do I always pronounce it? Do I always pronounce Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen with the sukun? No. I only pronounce it with the sukun when I stop there. I only pronounce with sukun when I stop there. If I were to continue and join it with the next ayah, I would say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Okay? So that's what we mean by mad arid lil-sukun. It's a sukun that is consequential. It's a byproduct of you stopping there. But it's not meant to be a sukun, and that applies to stopping anywhere within the Quran or pausing anywhere within the Quran. So if you have a long ayah, for example, we say Ya ayyuhan nasu u'budu rabbakum alladhi, and we continue, come to the end. وَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ. Let's say, no, لَعَلَّكُمْ already has a sukun. Let's find another long ayah where we can stop in the middle. مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا فلما أضاءت ما حوله. Okay? فلما أضاءت ما حوله. We stop there. That ha doesn't have a sukun, it has a dhamma. But we said حوله. Why? Because of waqf. If we continue, حوله. Okay? If you want to understand this topic better, I would say watch the video we've done on al-waqf wal-ibtida. Waqf and ibtida. You'll find it on YouTube as well. Specifically waqf, pausing and stopping. And I'll share that link as well in the Zoom chat. Inshallah, I think what's making it difficult for you to understand mad arid lil-sukun is because you're not familiar with waqf and ibtida, or waqf particularly. Once you understand what waqf is and how we always stop on a sukun, then you'll understand why mad arid lil-sukun is called mad arid lil-sukun. It is because of that sukun that we have created, because of the fact that we stopped. That didn't actually belong there if we were to continue. Hope that makes sense. So there's a fatha there, but we pronounce a sukun because we are stopping. Watch that video inshallah and it should clear up. We've gone way over time today. Let's go to the workshops inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.